We're good.
I'd like to call to order the council meeting for Tuesday, April 6, 2021. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for the April 6, 2021 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? I have Paul Heffer moving. I have Anita Van Hittersum seconding. Carson, I'll give it to you.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. So Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes,
So that motion carries 7-0.
thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Do not see any. Public comments. Opportunity for members of the public to speak to an item of business on this agenda. 2 minutes per person. Is there anyone out there in the audience that would like to speak to anything that's on the meeting tonight? If you do, just speak up, please.
And Reeve Bailey, I would just clarify as well that anyone who has comments on the drain, those would be addressed during the public meeting for the drain. So I guess if it's anything unrelated to the drain at this point.
Thank you kindly, Carson. And I'm not hearing of anybody. So we will move along. Consent agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent 5.11 to 5.12. And further, the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.8 for information. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving. I have Paul Heffer seconding.
In the meeting.
Before we take that to a vote, is there anybody that would like to speak to anything on that agenda? Anita, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to speak to item 5.3.6, the Wingerman Area Health Professionals Recruitment Committee. They have a surplus right now, so the funds that are there are returned to municipality according to their allocations. The board of directors decided that they will have a surplus fund of $5,000 and the rest will be returned to the municipalities. The municipalities will have the monies in reserves for if there is a new doctor, then the reserves will be called upon. But
Marion and Dale
it was
has joined the meeting.
Was decided that it wouldn't be any use for the committee to have that money sitting there. And I also would like to speak to item 4.3.7, the letter from Rebecca and Elliot Miller regarding the non-residence fees for daycare. I am also concerned about the non-residence fees for childcare, and we would like to be a very welcoming community for young families. And this is a question to Vicky or maybe Dwayne or I don't know, Donna. While looking at the budget, childcare is paid for by parents, the county, and the province. All municipalities already pay towards the county taxes. So why is it that non-residents have to pay extra while childcare is funded through province and the county?
Is there anyone on staff that would like to try to pick up on that? Or?
Your worship.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum, can you repeat that question?
Can you please explain to me why we have non-residence fees while our daycare is funded by parents, the province, and the county?
Through you, your worship, the non-resident fees are to offset the costs that are incurred by the North Huron residents or ratepayers. In terms of the child care center, in terms of the child care center and all of the programs, there is funding that comes in from the county and the province, as well as the registration fees. And depending on the program specifically they're talking about, you can look at it differently. Typically, we look at sorry, I'm stumbling on my words here. Typically, we look at the child care services overall for all of their, all their programs and all their expenses, like all their revenue and all their expenses. And we use off-site revenue to offset the cost at the child care center itself. But I've got the budget in front of me here, and the child care center on its own usually runs a deficit, or has a planned deficit, has a planned deficit for 2021 of $139,000. And that would be the cost to the North Huron taxpayer would be the $139,744. That would be the cost, but the other programs are self-sufficient and actually generating revenue and things. So it depends on how you would like to look at it, I guess. It's the non-resident fee is supposed to help offset those costs that are incurred by the ratepayers in North Huron. If you look at the child care budget in single budgets, like one for the child care center, one for the early years, one for before and after school at Maitland River, before and after school at Sacred Heart, and then another one early on, then it's all those other programs generate money. And if you keep it solely there, then it offsets the shortfall at the actual child care center itself. Does that make sense, or kind of, or no?
Yes, it makes.
I can look into it further if you need some more information, but according to the budget here, revenue-wise, the child care center, the majority of the revenue comes from the county / province, because the province uses the county to flow the money through. And then the next one would be the registration fees that would come through. And then the difference between that and the expenses is the $139,000 that North Huron would have to kick in.
Right, but I'm
Sorry.
the fees that the parents already pay fees through their Huron County taxes. The Huron County part of the taxes, parents already pay towards fees for childcare. So yeah, I would like to have some more information, or if you can investigate it a little bit more, how fees are established, and if childcare isn't that we can have some leeway for a non-residence fee.
So I just want to,
if that makes sense.
Yes, I want to touch on this, Anita. So the 139,000, when you say other people from other residents pay into Huron County, so does North Huron. So we all pay into the county, and it's divided up amongst all the different daycare centers and that. But if I'm understanding this properly, when everything is said and done, there's $139,000 shortfall for the daycare and everything we do through the child center. So the North Huron residents, no, what is it then, Vicki?
Through your worship, the child care center standing alone, there's a shortfall of $139,744.
Okay.
The other programs that we run for early years and before and after school at Maitland River and before and after school at Sacred Heart actually generate revenue, and that revenue offsets the center. In fact, if you, I've got some notes here that if you actually look at all of the programs that's run out of child care services and all of the expenses, the overall child care services generates approximately $40,000 in excess revenue. there is no shortfall.
No shortfall at all. But if the daycare stood alone, there'd be a shortfall.
If the daycare building and the daycare programs at that center alone stood on its own, then there's a shortfall.
And then the users of that would have to make up for the 139. So we could, as a council, say we want all that to stand alone. And then the users of the daycare would have to make up for that $139,000. I won't believe it this much longer. I think we may have lost you, Vicky, but that's okay. We'll talk another. So Anita, did you get the answers you were looking for? You're muted, Anita.
No, I would like to have staff investigate the childcare fees and what the results would be if we adjust non-residence fees for childcare.
I'm going to bring you up to date on that too. I did quite some time ago. I asked for the staff to prepare a report that if we, how much the daycare is using on full staff and full usage it's getting now, but if it only catered to the North Huron residents that are paying the $139,000, how much staff we have to lay off, what the deficit would look like. So I've asked for a lot of things so that we can focus on this. I believe I've seen somebody else's hand up. Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you, Reed. Yeah, I'm just curious as to, we're talking about North Huron's daycare and cross-border usage of it. Does other municipalities also get funding for daycare if they don't provide it? I'm just curious, do they get a portion that they can spend for daycare as we do? If not, if a municipality doesn't get funding for their daycare, do they qualify? I'm just curious. Like, we could have cross-border from Bruce, we could have cross-border from Asheville, Coburn, Wawanash, people that work in Wingham from there and bringing their kids in. So I just don't. It's a gray area to me that as to where this funding comes from, and does everyone get it, or is it just it doesn't matter? We could bring in children from Toronto if their parents worked up at the Bruce, we could advertise for them and bring them in and get there and get more funding for it. So it's very confusing. So I don't know.
Vicky, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Oh, I have Dwayne's hand up there. Dwayne, did you want to handle that one?
Well, yeah, and this, I don't want to confuse things, and hopefully not, but just, so essentially our children's program consists of 4 programs. And in terms of one of those services, which is the main daycare center, is essentially owned and operated by the municipality. In terms of the other 3 services, we're basically, and I think the easiest way to describe it is we're contracted to provide that service. So we receive funding from the province via the county that provides those 3 programs in North Huron. In addition, receive some funding for our main daycare center. And in terms of building on Vicky's comment, in terms of as long as we continue to operate all 4 programs, in terms of, we're sufficient, it's very much sustainable. But in terms of if we didn't have those other contracted services, and there's nothing to say that at any point in the future that those services, somebody else could pick up and provide those services, we still would continue to own and operate the main daycare center. And as Vicky's indicated, it operates at a deficit. So don't know if I've helped or confused the situation, but just to help understand the structure a little bit. And the money that is provided by the county is provincial money that flows through the county, and the county uses that funding for daycare centers in the county. So going to Councillor Faulkner's comment in terms of municipalities that deliver children's services, receive funding from the province via the county to provide that service. But if you don't have that service, then you wouldn't receive that funding from the county. So I don't know if hopefully I've clarified, not created more confusion, but.
Yeah, I just have a rebuttal for that. Is there, maybe Vicky can answer the question, are there spaces that are currently waiting, that are residents of North Huron that are filled by outside cross-border municipalities that our tax base does not benefit from because there's not enough spaces? That was to Vicky.
Can you, through you, your worship, can you rephrase that, Councillor Falconer? Are you asking me, do we have people on the waiting list who could be in the center, but non-residents are taking their spaces?
Yes.
I would probably, in some situations, probably yes. In the activity report, if you look at it, it seems like a lot of the programs run about half and half, resident and non-resident. And I know that we do have a waiting list for some of those age groups. So yeah, yes, there could be.
Okay, is that everything with that one? I have Deputy Reeve Sight, then I have Chris Palmer.
Yeah, the only comment I have is, and I want to say a comment. This is an excellent report, by the way, on all the activities and how our changes in bylaws have potentially impacted what. So this is a great report for us to follow up on and think about overall what we've done and how the changes we've made. The one concern I have, and it questions not the municipality but the county, in the sense where the county is saying, the county has said they'll cover in their subsidy the non-resident fee. When if it wasn't a non-resident fee but here's your fee, what's the difference? I don't understand why the county is saying, well, we're going to cover this now because of COVID and we fear for that's a concern, but don't think that it's going to happen over the life. And I'm reading into it like that. Maybe I'm not meant to read into it that way, but my concern is if the fee was across the board $50 a day and not 40 and 10% with a non-resident fee, why would the county care what the price is? The subsidy is the subsidy. What's the difference whether what we charge the user? The user is the user. So that's only my comment. I don't know whether Vicky or Dwayne want to even tackle that. I'm not necessarily needing an answer tonight, but it just seems to me odd that the county is willing to say, just because it's a non-resident fee, we may not cover or may not subsidize that rate, which doesn't seem right to me.
Go ahead, Vicky.
Through you, your worship, this may or may not answer Councillor Sipes' question, but my understanding is that the county was not prepared to deal with the non-resident fees, so they're having to pull money from other programs to help offset it. It wasn't necessarily that it was COVID. I think COVID has probably presented them with a situation where they have the money from other programs to use, but that may not be so in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, this is, thank you, Ray. This is 5.1.4, the Economic Development Committee meeting in February. Dwayne, you reported that you were working on a job description for an ECDEV officer. I don't recall council asking for that at this point. And I trust that council gets to discuss this issue in the future.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
Yeah, it kind of broke up a little bit there, Councillor Palmer, but maybe, so just in terms of, yes, in terms of there has been an economic development job description developed, and really it focuses on what the committee views as duties and responsibilities for that position. And what I'll be doing is bringing a report to council, basically, in terms of looking at how, there's different ways of delivering on those roles and responsibilities. So whether it's a position whether it's contract position, there's different options available, including, I believe Councillor Faulkner mentioned perhaps a shared arrangement with another municipality. So those certainly, in terms of all of those options, will be brought forward in a report for council at a future council meeting. As is Councillor Palmer, you're aware, in terms of there's nothing, we have no money in the 2021 budget for such a position at this time, but council did express an interest to move forward with the development of it and in terms of what it might be and what it could look like. And that will certainly assist us as we move forward with our future budget. So I don't know if I've answered, kind of broke up a little bit there. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, sorry for my audio, but yeah, you did, Dwayne. Yeah, I look forward to the future discussion.
Thank you. Vicky, did you want to speak up?
Yes, Your Worship. I just want to make sure that I have clear direction. So council wants a report back on they want us to want me to investigate how the fees are determined for childcare services, and is it the allocate? I'm just not clear.
Vicky, are you talking about the request I made, or are you talking about the one that we just had, the questions we just had now?
The questions now from Councillor Faulkner and Councillor Van Hittersum. Are you asking for a report? Is council asking for a report back?
Could we speak up, the two that spoke about that? Go ahead, Anita.
Yes, yes, Vicky, I would like a report about who is paying the fees for the childcare and how we dispense these fees, like how are they used? And I don't think it has anything to do with the with cross-border.
Okay.
Is that clear enough, or are you?
Vicky, it's up to you to say whether it's clear enough or not.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Because we are
Anyone-
getting the money from the county and the province, is it easier for us to receive or to charge non-residence fees?
So I think, Vicky, I think you and Dwayne need to sit down and talk about that, because it's good. It doesn't relate back to cross-border. It relates back to the taxes paid by everybody. I don't care where they are, and how. I'm understanding what you're saying, Anita, and how it all works out. Who's actually paying for what? Okay, did I understand that right, Anita?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Vicky.
So, in Reeve Bailey, just to clarify as well, so because that is stemming from agenda item 5.3.7, council wouldn't really be consenting to that as an agenda item. So your motion on the floor, you would want to amend it so that you're receiving for information the agenda items exclusive of 5.3.7, and then you would want to pass a separate motion. Basically, that council would be directing staff to prepare a report regarding the distribution of fees for childcare services.
Going back to the first, the mover and seconder, are you fine with pulling that, whichever number Carson just said out of that?
So your mover is Councillor Falconer and your seconder is Deputy Reeve Sipe.
You're okay, Kevin? Okay, and
How about that?
okay, thank you. Trevor, I don't see you on, please speak.
And I
Ms.
would
Trump?
like to make that motion then, if needed.
Well, so you want to deal with the motion you have on the floor first.
Yeah. First of all, I
Okay.
need Trevor, are you still with us? You're the seconder on that. I need your permission to make that change. Does anybody see Trevor? I don't see him.
No.
Carson, what's your suggestion?
Well, so you could receive that for information as well, and then you could pass a separate motion, I guess. There's enough distinction that I think you're fine either way.
Okay. So just to receive for, because we don't have
So,
Trevor.
so Yeah, so your motion on the floor would still be that the council of the township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 to 5.1.2. And further that the council of the township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.8 for information. So you can, that would be the motion on the floor. And so that's a version that's not amended as of right now.
Okay. And what do I do with the first and second mover of the first one? It just falls to the floor then? And
Well,
get a new motion?
so those, your mover for that motion is still Councillor Falconer, and your seconder is Deputy Reeve Sipe. So
Yeah. And you-
basically,
my-
they were not accepting of the amendment because of, at least because of the technology issues. So that's your motion that's still on the floor. So you would want to put that motion to a vote, and then you can deal with the second motion, which I believe Councillor Van Henderson would be putting
But
forward.
I've lost Trevor, unless you have him at your end. I do not have Trevor on to amend that.
Yep, no, so he's there. So I guess if there's no more discussion, I can call the vote on that first motion.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, the motion on the floor is that the council of the township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 to 5.1.2. And further that the council of the township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.8 for information. So Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
So Deputy Reeve Sipe is absent right now. So Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0 with Deputy Reeve Sipe being absent. So then now if you would want to get your second motion that Anita has put forward.
Okay, so Anita, you put forward, you wanted information to come forward about the costing of the daycare center and who it all goes to.
Yes,
Is that
Carson has a motion ready, I think.
Oh, yeah, Carson, go ahead.
So Councillor Van Hittersum has moved the motion. The council of the township of North Huron hereby directs staff to prepare a report regarding the distribution of fees for childcare services. So you have a mover of that motion, you would need a seconder.
Paul, is that you seconding? Okay, Paul seconds. Hand it over to you, Carson, when you're ready.
Yep, so thank you, Reeve Bailey. So unless there's further comments, again, the motion on the floor is that the council of the township of North Huron hereby directs staff to prepare a report regarding the distribution of fees for childcare services. So this would be a recorded vote. So Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Okay, yep.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe. So Deputy Reeve Sipe appears to be absent again. So Councillor Falconer
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0 with Deputy Reeve Sipe being absent.
Thank you very much, Carson. Moving on to public meetings, hearings, and delegations. 6.1, Jeff Dixon of RJ Burnside and Associated Limited, presenting the engineer's report for the Murray Scott Drain and Stream Rehabilitation Project 2020. Jeff, just before I hand it to you, I just want to say that, Jeff, and for all that were in attendance at our last meeting over this, I would like to apologize for allowing the meeting to go so far astray from its original goal. As Reeve of our community of communities, I will endeavor to control meetings a little better. So again, I do apologize for the way it got way out of hand. I hope you can forgive me. And having said that, and also with anybody else that wasn't in attendance at that meeting too, there was a lot of things going back and forth, and I should have brought it under control. So to everyone that was hurt by that or misunderstood anything, I do apologize. I will try to do a better job. Having said that, Jeff, it's all yours. Let me guess, we lost Jeff. You're muted, Jeff. Jeff, you may still be muted.
Is that better?
It's better.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff.
Okay, thank you very much, Reeve Bailey and Council. And on behalf of the Burnside team, we'll explain the revised report for the project. In the interest of time, we will refer to and elaborate on the changes from the or between the March 21 report compared to the December 2020 version. So on slide 1, you will notice that there is a item in red, a white background to it, or a block, number 1. The extent of the work on the project has not changed except for item 1, which we have changed the observation box, and we are proposing to replace it with a smaller and less costly surface water inlet, which some people may refer to as a Hickenbottom, although that is a brand name. And the reason we're doing that is to save some of the costs, but the drainage superintendent has expressed a desire to know the location of the drain. Mr. Robinson indicated that he could identify where the drain is within a few feet, but unfortunately, we don't know if we'll always have Mr. Robinson at our disposal to do that. So we have removed that item and replaced it with a less costly surface water inlet. You will notice 2 other items on the plan, item 2 and 3, areas that are hatched. Item 2 represents the area on the property identified by roll number 8-020 that has been underdrained out of the watershed. And item 3 represents the area on properties identified by roll numbers 8-021, 8-022 that have been underdrained out of the watershed. I'll speak a little bit more on that in a moment. Slide 2, please. There has been a section or a subsection 8.2.2 that's been added to the report to clarify that the future maintenance insofar as it relates to the features on lots 34 and 35 concession 7 are to be maintained as per the report and their status quo. We had, and we still have in section 6 of the report, a very detailed description of each item, each component of each wetland area, each feature area. But in that phrasing under the wetlands, there was a word minimum. We have removed the word minimum, and we have added this section to the maintenance clause to clearly identify that the maintenance of the drain is as it exists today. If there was even possible a change to the extent of the wetland features that have been incorporated as part of this drain, either their removal or increase or change in any of the dimensions or specifications or sizes of any of the features, that would require a new report under the Drainage Act. And presumably there would be information on file. This report would be on file, and I would suggest that if the owner of that property wishes to expand or remove those features, any of those costs at that time can be assessed specifically to that property as a special benefit assessment under the Drainage Act. So this was to clarify a concern from one stakeholder that we had minimum, but what happens if the areas were to be changed or increased? So we have put this clause in there to control the features as they are described. The areas are in section 6.2. The areas are in the calculations for the allowances, and some of the areas are referenced even on the plans. So we hope that that has clarified the concern, and I have spoken to a couple of the affected stakeholders about that. Appendix A, there's been no changes to the allowance schedule. Appendix B, project cost estimate has changed. A few more details to follow, and you'll see that on your screen or in front of you now. Appendix C, the supporting calculations, section 26 calculations, no change. Appendix D, The supporting calculations are tied to costs and are dependent on the equivalent areas. Accordingly, these changes are reflected in appendices D1, 2, D4, 5, 6, and 7. The property identified by roll number 8-020 or box number 2, the affected area of that property has not changed and remains at 34.21 hectares. However, the equivalent area of that property upon which the assessments are calculated has been reduced by 3.16 hectares from 29.76 to 26.60 hectares. The property identified by roll number 8-021 or item 3A, we'll call it, one of the threes. The affected area of that westerly lot has not changed and remains at 23.23 hectares. However, the equivalent area upon which the assessments are calculated has been reduced by 5.89 hectares from 23.23 hectares to 17.34 hectares. The property identified by roll number 8-022 or the east part of that lot on the east side of Scott Line, affected area again has not changed and remains at 10.75 hectares. However, the equivalent area upon which the assessment has been calculated has been reduced by 3.05 hectares from 10.75 to 7.70 hectares. By making all of these changes to these areas, the equivalent hectarage of the watershed, again, upon which the assessments are based, has been reduced by 12.1 hectares from a total of 205.53 to 193.43. Accordingly, and with the slight increase in cost of the project, less area to assess means a slight increase in the cost per equivalent hectare, regardless of where the property is located within the watershed and regardless of which section of the drain the property has been assessed into. Appendix E and F, the specifications and the agency correspondence and product information, no change. Appendix I, the changes to the drawing have been mentioned already insofar as it relates to the under drainage areas and the new surface water inlet. The slide you see before you now, slide 3, is a comparison of the costs, and it's been updated to reflect the March report. The December amounts from 2020 December are referenced on the right-hand side in the purple shaded column. The total estimated cost for the project is now $191,000, up $2,000 from the $189,000. It consists of construction, which was reduced by $1,200, administration, which was reduced by $300, engineering, which increased by $3,500, with a net impact of $2,000, an increase. If we can go to slide 4, please. This is the net assessments, and it's the one sheet that includes the information on the OMAFRA 1/3 grant for the lands registered with farm class tax, as well as the Bruce Power grant. This was not, again, as with the previous report, not bound into the report, but was loose sheet, and it shows the net assessments from the OMAFRA grant in red in the first of the red box column on the left for the lands registered with farm class tax, 1/3 reduction, less any allowances, which I noted already have not changed, to get a net amount assessed. The purple box to the right hand of that, or to the right of that, shows the further deduction of the Bruce Power grant in the amount of $67,599. After the deduction of all the funding sources, this project, based on the estimated cost, would now result in $6,318 if it came in exactly as estimated, being invoiced to the lands and the roads within the watershed, or with the lands within the watershed. The roads amounts are indicated below. So the Bruce Power grant has only been applied to the lands in the watershed. And to further clarify, in a letter to the Township Clerk dated March 12, 2021, MVCA has indicated that they are in possession of those funds and they will be released when the elements in the engineer's report are complete, namely the stream rehabilitation work downstream of Nature Center Road and the incorporation of the environmental features previously built by Murray and Wilma Scott. I would be pleased to try to answer any questions and address any concerns at this time. Reed Bailey.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Dixon. So I'm going to read the bylaw or the motion. That the Council of Township of North Huron here.
So Reeve Bailey, I would suggest that before you read the draft motion there, you would want to have your discussion first, whether that's questions for Jeff or as well as comments from any of the landowners attending the meeting.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Dixon? Go ahead. Does it have to be a councillor or can Luke speak up?
You would want to give council the opportunity to ask any questions of the engineer first, and then if there are no questions, you could certainly move on to the landowner comments.
Okay. So again, is there any question, comments, or concerns from the councillors themselves? I am not seeing any. Go ahead, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, through you, Reeve. I have heard no complaints from any of the landowners, just positive comments, and the changes are welcome to the group. And I'm very satisfied with the report, Mr. Dixon.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any others. So just to clarify, Carson, Luke can speak now, or there's a place later on in the meeting he can speak?
No, that's correct, Your Worship. You can now open the floor up to any of the landowners who would like to comment on the engineer's report.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say, I will just clarify as well, any questions that were, if they were pertaining to the assessments or the assessment schedule, those would be dealt with at the quarter revision, not at this consideration meeting.
We all understand that. So Luke, would you like to ask a question or comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now today
So
we are
Luke,
discussing.
it's cutting out for you, so I would suggest try shutting off your video and just having the audio so that council's able to hear you.
Hopefully this works. This private Murray Scott project was built with the generous support of many partners. Now today we are discussing this private project to become part of the municipal drain. This very expensive private project needs repairs, maintenance.
Just a second, Luke. Back to my back to Carson. Is he allowed to speak to this about that at this point in time? Is this what it's about? Guys, I just want to make sure we don't go off track again.
Yeah, so he's able to speak to that. It didn't sound like he was speaking to the assessments, but rather the scope of the project.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Luke.
Okay. This very expensive private project needs repairs, maintenance, and lots of money to maintain. And don't think for one moment that the worker costs are going to stop today. It will cost much more in the future. The report says, and multiple times, shall be maintained. Why can't they raise with the generous support of many partners, the funds needed to maintain this private project? Why do we need for this private project to become a municipal drain project? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. Mr. Dixon, did you or anybody out there could answer a question like that?
Well, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Schilder, the understanding of our appointment under the Act was to incorporate the features that were created on the Murray and Wilma Scott's property as part of the municipal drain. To that end, it is my understanding, although I do not know this unequivocally, but my understanding is that since those features have been built, some as long as 2005 when they started, have required very little maintenance. The intent of these features, especially the wetlands, other than the removal of sediment, which is a very cost-effective procedure, is to make the rest of the drain more cost-effective in regards to the reduction of future maintenance. And so a lot of the features that are incorporated, like the berm and the sediment control basin and the French drain in behind it and the wetland storage areas, is an attempt to reduce the burden of future maintenance costs on the watershed community. And so that is the purpose or the intent. There's no guarantees, but that is my understanding of the scope of the project and the requester of the improvement in regards to the features on the former Murray Scott property.
Okay. So, any other questions, concerns, or comments? Not seeing any. Do I have a mover and seconder? I didn't finish reading it yet.
No, you still don't have a motion on the floor, Reeve Bailey.
Okay, thank you very kindly. I just want to point out when I was on council last time around, the Murray Scott was hailed as quite a triumph. We had people coming from all over to check it out. Not being a farmer, I don't know much about it, but I do remember when I first got on council, Murray just get off council and he came to the council meetings. And I can remember how everybody thought it was such a great thing, and it is a great thing. And it was forward moving and forward thinking. And I don't know what has changed or what's going on with the community out there, but that's what I know about the Scott Drain. And I still think it's a great thing because Neil Vincent was there at the time too, and he was our Reeve, and we bragged about it. So I'm going to read the motion now. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopt the engineer's report for the Murray Scott Drain and Stream Rehabilitation Project 2021 as it presented by R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited. And further, the council provisionally adopt the first and second reading by law number 10-2021. Do I have a mover? I have Anita Van Henderson moving it. Do I have a seconder? I have Chris Palmer seconding it. Carson, it's your turn.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Henderson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very kindly. And again, Jeff, thank you for your presentation again.
Thank you. Good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Reports. Clerk's report. 2021-10 Site Plan Control Agreement with Gary Rutledge Holding Limited. Location, Plan 173, Part Block, east of Registered Plan 22R1777, Part 3 to 5, subject to right-of-way, Blythe Ward, Township of North Huron, County of
Marion
Huron.
and Dale Hussey.
Has left the meeting.
Application owner Gary Rutledge Holding Limited, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the Rutledge Holding Limited proposed development as it applies to Plan 173 Part Block East as registered Plan 22R1777 Part 3 to 5, subject to right-of-way, Blythe Ward, Township of North Huron, County of Huron, Blythe Ward, Township of North Huron. And further, that the council deem the adoption of bylaw number 26-2021 to be time sensitive and approves an extension to the section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw, allowing for the bylaw 26-2021 to be adopted at the April 6, 2021 regular meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. I have Kevin seconding. Questions or comments?
So,
Not
Reeve
sure.
Bailey,
Yeah.
Monica has a report to accompany this as well, now that you have a motion on the floor.
I was just about to say, I'm not sure if somebody wants to speak to this. Monica, it's your turn.
Wonderful, I'm still here. And Carson has my PowerPoint presentation. So this is an application for site plan approval. It's for a 4-unit apartment building on Queen Street in Blythe. You can go to the next slide. So this is in an area that's zoned R2. Council will likely be familiar with the subject property because the applicant came for a zoning bylaw amendment application within the last month or two. This property is designated residential in the North Huron official plan. It has access from Queen Street. It's located right across the street from the new fire hall in Blythe. And site plan application was submitted and reviewed by the township's development team, which includes BM Ross on behalf of North Huron, Huron County Public Works, Planning Department, North Huron staff, and the Conservation Authority. In reviewing this application, some issues with drainage were identified, but those were through some revisions to the plan, those issues were addressed. So at the time of tonight's meeting, all of the comments or concerns that were raised through the development team review have now been resolved. In terms of comments from the planning department, council will recall that a new residential intensification guideline has been adopted by the county and by the township. So the planning department did review this application with reference to the new guideline. But maybe before I state that, I should state that we reviewed it with reference to the site plan control bylaw, the zoning bylaw, and the policies of the North Huron official plan. And the application meets all of the requirements of the site plan control bylaw, the official plan, and the zoning bylaw. The Huron County Residential Intensification Guideline is just like I say, a guideline. It's intended to help developers of residential developments, such as the proposed apartment building, to create developments that are that seamlessly fit into the surrounding neighborhoods and create a very high level of urban design. So in reviewing this application, there were some qualities of the proposed development that do meet the requirements and suggestions of the guideline, and there are some things that were not met. For council's benefit, I've broken those things down in my report. The areas where it is met would be where possible, it's recommended that entrance doors be minimized, and that has been met. That outdoor amenity space be provided, that's met. The one area that the application doesn't meet the requirements of I call them requirements, the suggestions of the guideline, is that the guideline discourages parking in the front yard of buildings. I think that this is something that we might want to look at when council gets together with the planning department in May to talk about ways that we can amend the zoning bylaw to be more friendly to development. Right now, we have a large front yard setback, which pushes buildings further back on the lot. And in order to make the best use of the space, it kind of results in developers wanting to use that space for parking. So if we want to encourage less parking in front yards, we might want to change our requirements for front yard setbacks. But in terms of this application, yes, the parking is proposed in the front yard. No, that's not what the guideline encourages because it doesn't create as neat and tidy of an appearance as it could. But in this case, the planning department's recommendation is that the application for site plan be approved because it does meet all of the requirements of the official plan, zoning bylaw, and site plan, and has now received supportive comments from the rest of the development team. So going forward, the planning department will continue to provide information about the guideline as early as possible in the design process for developments. And I think over time, we'll start to see more and more developments that pick up on the suggestions of the guideline. And I will continue to highlight those in my reports for residential site plans. So the planning department's recommendation is that the application for site plan approval be approved.
Thank you, Monica. Questions, comments for Monica? I can't see most of you guys, so if somebody had their hand up, just shout out. I've got Deputy Reeves site to start.
Monica, since the proposed change has came back now, has there been any feedback or any comments by neighboring residential places as it relates to this establishment of this complex?
No, there wasn't comments from neighbors, which isn't always surprising because site plan applications don't get circulated to neighbors for comments. At the time that it was circulated for the rezoning, neighbors were circulated and we didn't receive comments from neighbors then, which would be the time that I would have expected to see the comments from the neighbors. So no, at this stage, there were no neighbor comments that came into play for this application.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Christopher.
Thank you, Reeve. Through you, Monica, does the neighboring house, we'll call it the farmhouse, big yellow brick job, do they know that the how the fourplex is going to be turned to the north and that the vehicles are going to be there? I'm just curious about that.
I'm not seeing it as being turned to the north. I see it as the front entrance faces Queen Street. And then the vehicles are adjacent to Queen Street.
So it's not a typical fourplex then?
It's not like a multi-attached fourplex like some of the other developments in this is a 4-unit apartment building, so there's one common entrance area and then the apartments are in each of the 4 corners.
Okay, excuse me then. Okay.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have a question for Monica? I'm not seeing anyone, so I believe we have a mover and seconder, Carson, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeves Syfe,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.1.2 is the cannabis policy statement that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the clerk dated April 6, 2021 regarding the cannabis policy statement for information purposes. And further, the Council hereby approves the cannabis policy statement as presented. And further, that Council directs the clerk to prepare for a bylaw for April 19th, 2021 regarding meeting of to adopt the cannabis policy statement. Do I have a mover and seconder? I have Kevin moving. Seconder, please. I have Deputy Reeves Sykes seconding. Carson, I believe you might have wanted to speak to this one.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship.
welcome.
So in front of council tonight is the draft cannabis policy statement that was requested by council through the motion passed at the March 15th meeting at the time when council made the decision to opt into cannabis retail locations. So the draft policy before council was developed based on the best practices of both the town of Goderich and the city of Owen Sound. And the one section of the policy that I will make note of is section 4, cannabis retail stores in sensitive areas. And basically in that section, we developed a list of sensitive areas and basically created a 100-meter buffer zone for these locations to help ensure public safety and protect the youth and reduce illegal sales. So for example, there's a 100-meter buffer zone encouraged to be located outside of for the complex in Wingham because that's a sensitive area as it's a hub for youth who may be attending events there for physical activities. So while we can't require it that municipality or that stores be located outside of these 150-meter buffer zones, we can certainly encourage it during the public circulation period for any applications received. So I guess that's all I will say at this time. And if there's any further information that council is requesting on the report or the draft policy statement, I'd certainly be open to answering that.
I'm going to open it up to council now. Questions, concerns? Okay, go ahead, Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Rave. Has the store owner of the potential retail outlet that we were discussing last meeting, have they been told? I'm not 100% sure where their store is. It's across from the post office. And if it's encompassed in the radius of those private schools, have they seen this map so that they're aware that they qualify or not as a location?
So through you, Reeve Bailey, to answer Councilor Palmer's question. So we have been in contact with the store because, as I mentioned at the March 15th meeting, the AGCO tool will not let you submit an application if it's within the 150-meter buffer zone. So basically, they got to the point where their application is unable to move past because it's within the 150-meter buffer zone of the school. So at this point, it's certainly on their end of how they plan to address that, but that is the update that I can provide at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I am not seeing anyone else. So Carson, I believe I have movers.
Yes, you do, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated April 6, 2021 regarding the cannabis policy statement for information purposes, and further that Council hereby approves the cannabis policy statement as presented, and further that Council directs the clerk to prepare a bylaw for the April 19, 2021 regular meeting to adopt the cannabis policy statement. So Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heifer?
No.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-1 with the no being Councillor Heifer.
Thank you. Finance Department, there are no reports tonight. Recreation and Communication Services, 7.3.1 proposed upgrade to the Blythe Campground. I'm going to let Vicky speak to this one because in the motion we're going to want to give council or staff direction or where we'd like to go. So Vicky, if you're there, can we have you speak to this? Or maybe not.
You're muted, Vicky.
Sorry, it was my turn, guys. Just 1 second here. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Before you this evening is a report regarding proposed upgrades to the Blythe Campground, which were presented to council on March 1st by the Blythe BIA. Council directed staff to look into the costs associated with those proposed upgrades and to report back. The report contains some cost estimates associated with the purchase and installation of those upgrades, as well as additional maintenance and operational costs that will be incurred if the proposal is proposed. It should be pointed out that the cost estimates are not inclusive. Staff were not able to estimate the additional costs that would be incurred for things such as policing if required, or staff time required in evenings or on weekends to deal with arrivals, departures, enforcing campground rules, and to deal with issues or disputes and things that may arise. Staff would also like to bring forward some new information that has basically come to light since Thursday last week. As council is aware, the Premier issued an emergency break shutdown order due to COVID-19. The emergency shutdown stipulates that campground operators are only allowed to provide campsites for trailers and recreational vehicles that are used by individuals in need of housing or are permitted there by the term of a full season contract. Short-term camping is not permitted, and temp camping is also not permitted. Camping is only permitted on campuses with electricity, water services, and facilities for sewage disposal. All other areas of the campground must be closed. The emergency break order will be in place for at least 28 days, possibly longer. There's no telling at this point with the numbers climbing. The province has not issued a stay-at-home order, but has indicated people should only leave their homes for essential services such as medical appointments, groceries, work, school, etc. And they're not supposed to travel outside their area. Given the information contained in the report and the new information presented tonight, staff are seeking council's direction on how they wish to proceed.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Okay, let's open it up to council for a conversation or a motion. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, Rebelli. There's been camping there since the campground, overnight camping since the campground's inception, whether it was covered by someone going out collecting the pay, or whether it was on the honor system since its inception, and since well past amalgamation. I haven't heard of any complaints from its inception about the costs, or the overall cost of what for policing and for staffing and such at any other time. I'm just wondering why that's being brought up now. It's been a campground. It's been a source for overnight camping for since its inception. So I can see that that we would want to put that into consideration. But even going forward, if we don't do anything with it, that's still going to happen. Because it's still there and still being used as that, or being allowed to be used as that. So I think what small increase it would be for looking after it, it's still our responsibility. It's still being used like that, other than short of closing the whole thing and thinking it doesn't exist. It's an ongoing living thing. So that's all I can say as far as the costing for policing. It's not going to cost any more for policing. We have a contract with the OPP. No matter whether it was at the Lions Park, something happening, it would go through the same. It's not going to cost us any more for that, or someone down at the walking gardens. It's something that's been there, and that doesn't add anything to the costing of it. The only costing of it would be is if we're trying to propose it to be something a little bit better. Yes, it would be increased, a little bit increased of having to move a picnic table when you cut the grass, but you have to move lots of things when you're doing that, cutting grass. So it's not apples to apples here. There's not that much difference to move forward on it, other than the costing of some picnic tables and some fire pits. So I can't see it being any large increase in municipal labor going forward.
Thank you, Kevin. Vicki, go ahead.
Through your worship, the reason that and I may need to be corrected on this, but I thought that there was something in the policing that we're charged per incident and things. So, and I understood that we had received some money back because there'd been a decrease in incidents. But the whole thing with the policing, and Deputy Reesype may speak to this, but the whole thing, the premise of it was because campgrounds that tend to have the fire pits and things tend to also have alcohol involved and things. And when alcohol's involved, then things can it's no different than if it's an event. Things can get a little rowdy and out of hand and things. So that was the only premise. The only thing about it though, Councillor Faulkner, is we don't know. It's just making council aware. We don't know if it will occur. It's more of an awareness thing that it may occur and things. So that's just the point, is just making sure the council is aware. Just, in terms of even the Elliott Park that was raised down in South Huron and things, and some of the issues that they had, and where they had to have the police come in and deal with them, and they still have to have the police come in and deal with those issues that are down there and things. So that's all it is. It's just making council aware of the whole situation and things like that.
Thank you very
That's
much.
the purpose of that statement.
Oh, sorry, Vicky, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay. In terms of cutting the grass though and maintenance, right now there's nothing there to really move. Everything is wide open. You're cutting around, some electrical poles and things like that. The introduction of the picnic tables and these portable fire pits will cause some additional labor, but that was outlined in the report for your consideration.
Thank you, Vicky. Deputy Reeve Sipes?
Yeah, I think ultimately right now, one thing, Vicky did mention is policing. We are under contract. So the cost of policing is the cost of policing. There is a cost per, incident or however, whatever you want to term you want to use that they use. But in essence is, the one thing that I will say is the intention of opening this is in collaboration with the festival. So I suspect, just correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not suspecting that we're going to get a lot of olds going to the festival and then staying overnight. That is not, I know it could happen, but that's not the intent, or at least not the, that's not the focus group in which we are aiming this. It is in support of the festival and providing that, but by obviously there is staff and us can never know all of the issues that may arise, and we don't ever expect anybody to know every issue that could arise. My concern has always been about where this cost and what is our responsibility as a municipality, and what is the BIA's or whatever their responsibility as a group who requested that this potentially be an opportunity to be used. I think ultimately it's a shared responsibility and a shared relationship as we go forward. But the capital investment that we're talking about here, in my mind, these are all things other than the fire pits. These are all things that can be redeployed. Like the municipality could use a lot of picnic tables around outside of that in another idea. But so, I think it's at least a great idea, at least to try it. I'm not suggesting that it's a temporary or permanent establishment. What I'm saying is this is an attempt to reevaluate that part of the campground, utilizing this marketing plan to see if it can work. Now, again, COVID has thrown a wrench into this deal, and I think we need to be very clear as it relates to the province. And if the province doesn't allow it, then we need to even reconsider potentially reevaluating this coming back in a month when we know what's going to happen. Because I don't know that we want to open this up when we don't even know if the province is going to open this at all. They could go 2 or 3 months and then it's not going to change anything. So I think ultimately, it's a good idea in principle. COVID has thrown a real wrench into this plan in my mind that I'm just not sure what we do from a cost perspective. But again, I think from a capital investment perspective, I'm okay with it in the sense that these capital costs could be redeployed to other places in the municipality if it doesn't go for CA.
I'm going to go over to Kevin first. He had his hand, and then Vicky, I'll come back to you. Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. I'd just like to remind the rest of the council and staff that this asset has been North Huron's asset and been run as an overnight camping since its inception, since we amalgamated. it's just been unfortunate that past councils and past decision making on that, they've turned a blind eye to it. They've never really put any assets to it to assign anyone that on staff to look after looking for or collecting the overnight staying fees, or to really catering to anyone that comes there. There was just kind of a if you show up there at night and if there's somebody there in the morning, you know, if you're not gone before daybreak, somebody's going to come out and will inquire. But it's we're not asking this piece of property to do anything that it hasn't been doing for 20 years. We're just trying to ask so that maybe we put a little bit more emphasis into controlling and taking a little more pride in it being there as a municipality. It's no more policing, no more costing. It's been there. We've been doing it. All we're asking, all the BIA, as far as I know, is asking for is if we can put a couple of picnic tables and some fire pits out. That's not a huge ask. I mean, we spend more than that putting a stop sign up somewhere or deciding where to put a crosswalk. It's a very small personal investment by the municipality as far as manpower and overseeing. But I think the value of what it could be might be surprising and something I think is worthy of our attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Vicky?
Through your worship, please don't think that I am against this, Councillor Faulkner. I'm just trying to make sure that council's aware of all the things that it encompasses, and there were areas that we could not provide cost estimates on. So I did the best that I could. And in terms of the festival, we are certainly supportive of the festival. We were already in discussions with the festival about camping, their visitors or their attendees camping there prior to the BIA becoming involved. And thanks. So no issues with that. Just to address something that Deputy Reeve-Sipe had said about a partnership with the BIA in assisting with this. We discussed that at the meeting with the Threshers, the Blythe Festival, and the BIA. And unfortunately, the BIA is not able to come forward with any volunteers to assist with any of this, is what we were told. We were told that there would be, they believe there'll be enough revenue generated there to cover any costs that the municipality would incur in terms of additional staffing from that point forward. So.
Yes, Reed. Okay, and that, I guess, from my perspective, from a 1-year trial, in the sense that you're not opening up the entire campground, just a small area of the area of where they're wanting it. I'm okay with the attempt. I think we have to be cognizant of, though, regardless of what the utilization of that property has been in the past, or even what its purpose was, we made a motion, 6 months ago that told the residents of and the Legion that we weren't in the campground business. So we need to understand that I'm supportive of making an attempt to try to do something different with a piece of property, to better utilize a piece of property. But what I'm not willing to do is tie our hands into using an entire piece of property when we know that it has been underutilized in the past, and we know that COVID is not going to help us in the sense that, whether people are willing to travel or not willing to travel, we don't know. So I understand. I've listened to every answer from the BIAs and the groups and the questions. I get it. The master plan is going to tell us, and I think we still need to utilize that master plan as the guideline of whether this municipality needs a campground long term or it doesn't. And I think ultimately, from my perspective, that's where I'm landing. I'm happy with the supporting of the group for a year to get us through, but I'm not willing to support a long-term arrangement other than what we've got today.
Christopher? You're muted, Chris.
Reeve, I think Anita's hand was up before mine.
I'm sorry. I was watching her, but I wasn't sure if she had it up or she was just shaking her fist at me. Go ahead, Anita.
I'll do both. Thank you, Reeve Bailey. I totally agree with Trevor's assessment from this campground. I have another idea. The Huron County Economic Development Board has a summer company program. They supply grants of up to $3,000 to youth to do a company. So I was wondering if somebody in the community would be interested to apply for this, for running the campground or the 25 or how many places we would like to see, to run this through this program, learn some experience for running a campground and go from there.
Thank you very much, Anita. It's a good thought. Go ahead, Christopher.
Thank you, Reeve. I've got 20 years of camping under my belt, and so I've watched a lot of things happen. And there would be more maintenance than even Vicky's expecting. They'll be cleaning up after every weekend because people tend to leave garbage in their fire pits. I've seen it, so trust me on it. Security and enforcement of the camp rules is huge, huge. And all the bad things happen at night, and it's absolutely correct. The enhancement items, tables and these portable fire pits, if they're not chained down, they're going to walk. They will. And then we'll be replacing them all the time. Those fire pits, if it's a portable one, a ring, they're a handy item for people. I would really like to see, like Deputy Reeve said, the master plan. To me, that declares everything how we should move forward. So that's what I'm waiting for. Yeah, that's my thoughts. I'm not ready to do this at this point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Palmer. Paul, do you have your hand up? You're muted, Paul.
Thank you, Reeve. Yes. Yeah, it's quite a report read there, and I guess I go back to wanting to wait on the master plan. People are saying it doesn't seem like too much money out of the budget, but it has to come out of reserves, and that money was put in there when we did our budget for things that can go wrong, and we do know that can happen. And also when we did the KPMG recommendation, there's 7 of us that voted against the park in Wingham. And I think one of the counselors said at the meeting, what we vote on here, it's sort of is going to be what's going to be happening with the other park. We have to be alert to that too. But other than that, I'm waiting for seeing the master plan. And I feel we've already passed the budget. And with the type of year that came down that Vicky was talking about at the start there, what the government's coming out with, we don't know what's going on. So I feel that we should be waiting a year on this, and we'll know this fall whether it's a go or not a go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kevin, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump in here for a second first. So I want to clarify the difference between the Wingham Trailer Park and the Blythe Trailer Park. The Wingham Trailer Park, and somebody can tell me if I'm wrong, there was Mike Rental came forward and stood before our council and said that he wanted to buy it and run it as a trailer park. At the same time, the Legion let us know that their staff was no longer going to be able to, and that could have been a personal conversation between Mike and I, but I'm pretty sure it was council. The Legion no longer had staff that were available to take care of it. The person that had taken care of it for a long, long time was giving it up, and they couldn't find anybody. It was going to go back into the hands of our township, and I recall being on council before, it was a $50,000 a year touch for maintenance from staff. So it was a good deal when the Legion was doing it. It all worked for our community, and we all worked together. Unfortunately, we just ran out of steam. Now, the Blythe campground right now, you have the BIA stepping forward and saying, hey, we've got an idea, let's run with it. We have got the Threshers saying, We like this idea. Let's run with it. We got the theater already saying, hey, we're already running and we're going to put this theater together if it works out. I think if you were to turn down those three entities for whether it's the money or waiting for some guy from Toronto to tell us how to run our organization, I think it would be a shame. These three groups are getting together and they're going to work with us and they're going to try to make this work. So I think, in all honesty, we should pass a motion saying, let's try this for 1 year. We know it's X amount of money. Let's see if we can make some money. And maybe let's have a little faith in the citizens of our community. Let's try this because the citizens who step forward free of charge and work so hard think it would be a great idea. I'm not getting the hard part here. And Kevin, you are right. When I was on council before, we'd find out the $250 or $300 would come in and we'd say, where'd that come from? And they'd say, well, people overnight camping in the Blythe Trailer Park just pulled in and they knew where to put the money. There was a little can somewhere. They stuck it in the little can and they drove away and nobody ever even knew they were there. I never heard of the police ever being called in the 4 years I was there. Never heard a problem. It was just amazing how this money showed up. And apparently these people, I don't know if they still do it or not. Anyway, I'm going to go back to what I was originally wanted to talk about. These are volunteers, their time, and they're stepping forward. They're great volunteers. We are so lucky as a community of communities to have these volunteers. I think we should get behind this project. And if COVID stops us from doing this, well, hell or high water, we try. And as a community, we pull together. And we will remember as a community, we pulled together. Let's give it one shot. Give me a motion just saying, let's try this for a year and move this along. Any other thoughts? We have a motion. Go ahead, Trevor.
The one thing, Reed, though, it's fine to come up with an idea, and that's what these groups have come up with, an idea. And I completely agree with you. I think we need to support the ideas. The issue is that the ideas are that's all that they're offering. They haven't, not that I'm, from what I'm hearing from the report, is that they're only offering the idea and they can't commit to anything else. Which is rightfully, if that's what they can commit to, great. If they can't, it's better to know now than we don't know. So I can understand wanting to support people, and I'm all supportive of that as well. I think the other councillors do have common points of where we are for financial aspects, but I think we ultimately need to decide whether we are willing to accept giving it a try until a master plan tells us whether we even need a campground, or is it too much of a risk to take? And that's an individual councillor's decision of an opinion. I know where I stand. I'd like to give. We have not, as Kevin has indicated, the municipality has not done a good job of trying to promote this. And I'm not saying promote 250 sites. I'm really promote what we have in the small area that we need to try to see if we can make it work. If we can't make it work, we can't make it work. But I mean, at least if we try it for a year, it's nothing harm in trying. And then when the master plan comes back, we can find out that, it didn't work. The issue that I still say is that this has to be contingent on the Ontario government. If the Ontario government's policies don't allow it, we need to make sure that we don't go and spend money, a whole lot of money, and then find out we can't open it. So I think in my mind, it needs to be reevaluated after the 28-day emergency break or whatever the heck that means from a province. But preliminarily, I'm in favor of it, in my opinion, but I just want to make sure that we got to be clear that this is going to be a municipally run area. We're not expecting anything support, in my mind, from anybody else other than the municipal staff.
That was not. I've had many meetings with the BIAs, and I've been involved in this from day one. My understanding is we're all going to pull together. This is not going to fall on the employees to do by themselves. I'm going to go to Kevin first. I'm going to go back to Vicky, and I think we should stop beleaguering this. And honest to God, guys, if you've got these three groups pulling for you, and you as a council walk away from them, I think that would be such a shame. Go ahead, Kevin, and then Vicky.
Thank you. Through your, just a comment, if we're hinting stuff on, what the province does this or doesn't that. It's a municipally owned infrastructure as it is. If we're under those restrictions, we should be posting to the media that the Blythe campground is closed because of COVID. It's our responsibility. Like we're taking an asset that nobody wants to do anything with, and then we're pairing it to, oh, if this happens, that happens. Right now, we're ignoring it. People can come in their camp tomorrow. There's anybody in there from the municipality saying, "Hey, get the heck out."
Yep.
We're under a COVID thing. No one's taking the responsibility to. This is our asset. It's not, it's a parking lot. It needs to be paved or plowed, and we're not plowing it. No different. We put an outhouse or a porta potty at the East Wellnash Park every year. That's a tax dollar, but what are we getting out of that? We don't have to put up a sign saying that park's closed or this park's closed. As far as the comparing Wingham to campground to this one, we have no permanent sites here. We have no seasonal sites. We're not asking to do that. A 3-day maximum overnight camping to come to a show or something. It's not where we're going to have to kick people out and people are trying to live there cheaply and live in Florida the next time. It's already a municipal owned asset. We're just refusing to manage it. Either put it up as surplus and let someone else do it. Quit saying it doesn't exist. It's under our power. It's no more maintenance, and we're putting in 60 trees there this year. No more maintenance, cutting around 60 trees and then it's cutting around a picnic table. We're not talking. We're trying to make it as an asset that we don't want to touch. If we don't want to touch it, let's get rid of it. That's, I can say just let someone else do it. But if we don't want to do it as a municipality, say we're not going to do it. But saying we got an asset that we don't want to put any infrastructure in, that's fine. We either got to put up or do it or don't do it. This bickering back and forth about what it costs to move a fire ring, a truck rim that we bought from somebody is going to make or break whether we get a campsite there or not. It's ludicrous. We own it anyway. It's an asset. Either we provide the funding and try and make it feasible, or write it out of the equation. We're just been ignoring it for too many years. Thank you. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Kevin. Vicky? You're muted, Vic. Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. So just to touch on a couple things, we're not ignoring it. Even the press release today that came out that was issued by the municipality says the campground is closed. We've been including it in all of our press releases going forward. So it is there. It has been an events ground, and then it has provided the occasional kind of place to stop by and spend the night kind of thing. The other point, though, I want to make sure we're clear on, and I have Jamie on the line, and it looks like Rachel King is on the line too, and they were both present at the meeting with the Threshers. This is not a partnership. The municipality will be running this. Threshers is not doing anything toward this other than they said that they might be able to use some of those picnic tables for their event. The BIA said that they are not able to do anything with this. So that it's not that they're coming forward with volunteers or hours of volunteers to help do any of this work or even to help promote it. I'm sorry, but they said no, that's not something that they would be able to do. So this would purely be run by the municipality, strictly by the municipality.
Thank you for clarifying that, Vicky. Okay, Carson, can you put together a motion so we can start voting on this and move it along? I wonder if the first part of the motion is good.
So I drafted a couple things here, and I guess it's depending on where you want to go as a council. So I've heard multiple options thrown out there. So one, you could amend the motion saying that a decision regarding the proposed upgrades be deferred until after the provincial lockdown, or if you want to approve them now, right? So you could amend the motion so that the proposed upgrades be approved at an approximate cost of $18,000. And then in that motion, you would direct the Director of Finance to transfer the required funds from the the township's general reserve funds, or not that I heard it, but your other option would be you could also turn down the proposal as well if council wanted to do that, and we could just certainly draft something up. So I guess from council's perspective, in order for me to craft a full motion, I would need a councillor to put forward some sort of direction. And I think as staff, if you were to proceed with approving it, we as staff would also require direction as to timelines, right? So there is also a discussion of, do you want to wait till the provincial lockdown is over, right? So there's an upfront capital cost of $13,000. So I'm sure Vicky would want direction as to whether you want her to go away and make those capital purchases, even if we're in the middle of the lockdown still. So I'll throw out those considerations there, and then we can go forward based on what's put forward by council.
So Carson, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to draft that we start now, and I'm going to put this out for so we can have a vote on this motion. I want to start now because if you wait till COVID's done, or another 30 days, by the time you get it up and going, another 30 days, you've lost the summer. So let's be proactive. Let's see if we can get if we can agree to a motion of having this start now and working with the groups, however you want to say that. And let's just see if council votes it up or down. Did I do that right? One of the live councillors want to put it through if I'm not able to as the reeve. Was I muted? No. Oh, go ahead.
Bailey, I would like to put that motion in that we started now.
Yeah. Run one up, Carson. Let's see what the vote happens.
So the draft motion you've suggested there would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated April 6, 2021 regarding the Blythe Campground for information purposes, and further that the proposed upgrades be approved at a cost of $18,000, and further that the Director of Recreation and Community Services be directed to proceed with the capital purchases immediately, and further that the Director of Finance be directed to transfer the required funds from the township's general reserve funds. So that would be your motion, and basically what that motion means is that you're approving of the proposed upgrades, you're giving Vicky the direction to proceed with those capital purchases right away, and you're giving Donna the direction to transfer the required funds from reserves because they are currently not in the 2021 budget.
Thank you.
So,
Rick, are you good with that?
Yes, and this is to you. It's just not full.
For 1 year. We're going to see how it goes and revisit in 1 year.
Okay.
Yes.
yeah, so just to clarify, council previously passed a motion directing that any proposal be for 1 year. So that is already captured in previous direction.
Do we have a seconder? We have Deputy Reeves seconding. Thank you. Carson?
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. So just to clarify again, the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated April 6, 2021 regarding the Blythe Campground for information purposes. And further that the proposed upgrades be approved at an approximate cost of $18,000. And further that the Director of Recreation and Community Services be directed to proceed with the capital purchases immediately. And further that the Director of Finance be directed to transfer the required funds from the township's general reserve funds. So this will be a recorded vote. So Councillor Van Hittersum?
No.
Councillor Palmer?
No.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Counselor Heifer,
No.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 4-3, with the noes being Counselor Van Hittersum, Counselor Palmer, and Counselor Heifer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Public Works and Facilities, tandem snowplow tender outcome that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated April 6, 2021, regarding the procurement of a replacement tandem truck for information, and further that the purchase of the tandem truck with snowplow equipment be awarded to All Truck International in the amount of $278,673 plus applicable taxes. And further, the council authorizes fleet vehicle number 7-16 to be sold and directs the Director of Finance to place proceeds from the sale of this vehicle into the Public Works Reserve. Do I have a mover? I'm missing a lot of you guys, so speak up. I have Anita Hitterman, Hittersum, and I have Paul Heifer seconding. Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I'll hand it over to you when you're ready, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Counselor Palmer,
Do we want to have Jamie speak to this?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Jamie again. Jamie, did you want to speak to this? Jamie?
If you guys have questions for me, I'm here to answer anything. It's a report outlining the 2 tender results that we received for the tandem plow truck with snow equipment. So yeah, it's the All Truck International is a company in Goderich, so it's fairly close by. Our old tandem is coming to its end of its useful life, and therefore the Public Works Department proceeded with budgeting for a new truck during budget deliberations, and this was the outcome. So yeah, if you have any questions, I'm here.
Jamie, what color is it?
You can be any color you want.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, I don't see any, so I believe I. Go ahead. Sorry, Christopher, go ahead.
Through you, Rave, to Jamie, is the box worth flipping over to the new chassis, or is it done as well?
Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Palmer, it's done. We would be able to sell it as a combined unit in the future. I don't believe it wouldn't be worth switching it over to the new one. The new one's a little bit larger anyways, so we would have to rig it up so that it would fit. So no, at this time, I wouldn't recommend that.
Anyone else? Carson, I believe I had a mover and seconder, didn't I?
yes, that's correct, Your Worship. You have a motion on the floor with a mover and a seconder.
It's all up to you now.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Counselor Palmer,
Yes.
Counselor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight, Counselor Falconer,
No.
Counselor Heifer,
Yes.
Counselor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-1, with the no being Counselor Falconer.
Thank you. Fire department, we have no reports. Building department, no reports. Child care department, 7.7.1. That the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated April 6, 2021, regarding the wage enhancement grant for child care services for information purposes. And further, that the Director of Finance be authorized to transfer $42,075.46 from daycare reserves to return to the 2020 overpayment of the wage enhancement grant to Huron County. Do I have a mover?
So
have
move.
Deputy Sykes moves, Anita Hitterman seconds. There's some, I keep apologizing, Anita. Okay, we have a mover and seconder. Let's have a conversation. First, we're going to have Vicky speak to this.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, before you this evening, Council, is a report. This report's regarding the wage enhancement grant that was received in 2020 supplement staff wages and childcare services division. As indicated in the report, the amount of funding awarded was based on a normal year of operations and was pre-COVID. So, you know, due to COVID-19, childcare services, as you know, was not able to operate at full capacity, which basically resulted in the overpayment of the wage subsidy. The amount of overpayment was transferred to the childcare services reserves at year end in anticipation that there would be an invoice coming forward. And Huron County has issued that invoice to the township now. Staff are requesting that the Director of Finance be authorized to transfer the $42,075.46 from the daycare reserves into operations so that we can pay the invoice from Huron County. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, concerns, or comments for Vicky? Not seeing any. Carson, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor McBurney? Councillor McBurney, you're muted.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve-Site?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
No.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey?
I'm going to say no too.
And Councillor Heffer, did I call your name? I did call your name?
Yes.
Okay, yep, so that motion carries 5-2 with the noes being Councillor Falconer and Reeve Bailey.
Thank you. No reports from the CAO. Correspondence, letter from Paul Montgomery expressing an interest to be appointed to the Economic Development and Recovery Committee. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the North Huron Economic Development and Recovery Committee's recommendation to appoint Paul Montgomery to the North Huron Economic Development and Recovery Committee. And further, that bylaw number 25-2019 be a committee appointment bylaw be amended to reflect this appointment. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. Do I have a second? Looking for a seconder, please. I have Mr. Sykes second. I'll speak to this and then I'll just throw it out there. We're very happy to have Paul. He's going to be talking for the industrial sector of our communication through COVID-19 and on into the future with the Economic Development Committee, we hope. He has many, many years of, I think we all know Paul. If you don't, it would be kind of a miracle if you didn't. He has been around and in business forever, as his parents have before him. And he will be a good contributor and great help to our team. So I'm going to throw it out there to councilors. Questions, comments, concerns? I am not seeing any. I believe I did have a mover and seconder, Carson.
Yes, you do, Your Worship.
Thank you. It's your turn.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Deputy Reeve-Site?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey?
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Reeves activity report. Well, I guess it wouldn't be a surprise to anybody if I told you that we're in shutdown again. We're not complete lockdown, but they have shut everything down. I think it's going to get, could be a long, hard summer again this summer. Having said that, we all need to pull together. We all need to come up with great ideas, activities, anything we can do to be safe. But please, everyone out there, be safe. Think about it, especially with next week as a holiday. I know what it's like to sit in the house all day long, but we've got to be careful. If we, the community, are not careful, this thing's never going away. And when you have a chance to get your shot, please. You're helping everybody around you, even if you don't feel sick. So I just wanted to touch on that. And I wanted to let you know that we did send another letter off to Morris Turnberry asking them if they would please get back to us and have a conversation about the cross border. It's been a long, long time. They have it on their open agenda for tonight on their council, and they will be speaking to it anytime now. We're hoping they will come back and we can maybe restart and have start a conversation that's been lagging for a long time. I'm not going to dwell on a lot of other things. There's some things in the air, but we'll deal with them as we move along. Council members' reports. This is verbal or written updates from members who sit on boards or committees. Who would like to start? And if I don't see your picture, please just speak up. Tonight, nobody wants to speak? I could have spoke longer then. In that case, we'll move on. Comments by members. Any comments from the members? Tonight, we shall move on. Did somebody put their hand up? Go ahead, Paul.
You, Reeve. Yes, I got to talk to a group of school kids from Listowel through their teacher, Mr. Valdez, in town here, and is a civics class, and they're just curious when we had the ATV brought to our town and whatnot, and being that it's sort of a rural area out there in Listowel, that is an interesting thing for them, and they just asked a few questions and then different things about being council. It's just a good 20-25 minutes of a good talk with these teenage kids, and it is very rewarding. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. So that was comments by members. Now we're going to go into notice of motion. This is a request from Deputy Reeve Site that the Council Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to send a joint delegation invitation to the Maitland River Elementary School, F.E. Medill Secondary School, and Sacred Heart Catholic School regarding their umbrella project and its progress. And that's a notice of motion, so we'll be talking about it at the next meeting. Okay, so bylaws. Bylaw number 10-2021. Now, Murray Scott Municipal Drain and Stream Rehabilitation Project 2021. That the bylaw number 10-2021 being a bylaw to provide, oh, you know something? I'm just going to read the front part of this and I'm going to get a mover and seconder. I have Paul, you moved it, and Deputy Reeve Sykes seconded it. Thank you. And I'm going to hand it over to Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I will just read the motion here because just to clarify, it is only first and second reading of this bylaw and it's being provisionally adopted, which would then kickstart the quarter revision and the other appeal periods that align throughout the Drainage Act. So the motion on the floor is that bylaw number 10-2021 being a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the Township of North Huron in the County of Huron, Murray Scott Municipal Drain and Stream Rehabilitation Project 2021 be introduced, read a first and second time, and provisionally adopted the 6th day of April 2021. So Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We're going to go to the next one. Bylaw demolition and removal agreement between Wetter Demolition 1992 Inc. Carson, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion would be that bylaw number 25-2021 being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and Clerk to sign on behalf of council a demolition and removal agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Wetter Demolition 1992 Inc. be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve and Clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. So if you wanted to get a mover and a seconder for that, Reeve Bailey.
Yes, can I have a mover and seconder, please? I have Paul Heffer moving. Seconder, please. Trevor Sykes seconding.
So that would be a recorded vote. So Councillor Heifer, Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
No.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-1 with the no being Councillor Falconer.
Thank you. Bylaw 26-2021 Site Plan Control Agreement, Gary Rutledge, Rutledge Holding Limited. May I get a mover? Chris Palmer moving, seconder please. I have Paul Heifer seconding, Carson Churs.
So the motion on the floor is that bylaw number 26/2021, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve and Clerk to sign on behalf of council a site plan control agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Rutling Holdings Limited, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve and Clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. So Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heifer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Announcements. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, April 19th, 2021 at 6 p.m. through electronic participation. The next museum committee meeting will be held on Thursday, April 8th, 2021 at 2 p.m. through electronic participation. The next economic development and recovery meeting will be held on Thursday, April 15th, 2021 at 2 p.m. through electronic participation. The next Wingham BIA meeting will be held on Thursday, April 15th, 2021 at 6:30 through electronic participation. And the next Blythe BIA board meeting will be held on Thursday, April 29th, 2021 at 8 a.m. through electronic participation. Other business, note of motion request from Councillor Van Hittersum that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby direct staff to prepare a letter to the Honorable Carla Waltrug, Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Disability Inclusion. The Honorable Christina Friedman, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, and the Honorable Ben Lobb, Huron County MP, and the Honorable Lisa Thompson, Minister of Government and Consumer Services, and Huron Bruce MPP, in an effort to request the restoration of funding to the Center of Equability Learning as Access. CELA.
So Reeve Bailey,
Yes.
just to clarify on that one, so it should be the Center for Equitable Library Access, if I'm correct. That is the requested change, right, Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And to reserve their funding cuts. So that's a motion coming up from Councillor Van Hittersum for, I believe, the next meeting.
So that's this meeting, Your Worship. So
I apologize.
you can turn it over to Councillor Van Hittersum to speak to her intentions of this notice of motion request, and then the draft motion is there for a mover and a seconder.
I do appreciate your help. Go ahead, Anita.
Yes, 1 in 10 Canadians, that's 3 million residents, have a print disability and need accessible reading materials. Government of Canada is cutting the 3 million funding to the CELA. That supports the production of these materials. The Government of Canada promotes equity and inclusion for people with disabilities, but they're cutting funding that supports the production of these accessible books. Reduction and eventual elimination of this service will, without question, negatively impact an already vulnerable population. Accessible books matter for education, connectivity, and hobbies, for employment, economic advantage, equity, and inclusion. I would ask Council support to direct staff to prepare a letter to request the restoration of full funding to the Center of Equitable Library Access and to reverse their funding cuts.
Sorry. So Did we have a motion for that yet, Anita? I forget.
Yeah, so you've read the motion, your worship, and
I made the
and
motion.
Councillor Van Hitterson would be the mover. So you're looking for a seconder at this point.
Thank you. Seconder is going to be Deputy Reeve. I do apologize. Something just popped up and took my mind away. I'll forget Chris. Okay, we have movers. It's your call.
Thank you, your worship. So Councillor McBurney?
Question.
Yep, go ahead.
Through you, Reeve. Just so I understand, is it just the reading material, like Braille, for instance? Is that what you're referring to here?
It's Braille, it's audio books, it is programs to read to people, so read out loud and that sort of stuff. It's through the CLA that all those materials will be provided to people, and it's the library, so it's all people can access it for a very small fee.
Okay, yeah, it surprises me that the government cut that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing any. Go ahead, Carson.
Thank you, your worship. So Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heifer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
13.2, Board of Revisions, Scott Drain and Stream Rehabilitation Project 2021. Date of the Court of Revision and instruction to tender. That the Court of Revision for the Murray Scott Drain Stream Rehabilitation Project 2021 be set for Thursday, April 29th, 2021 at 9 a.m. through electronic participation, and that the project be tendered to R.J. Burnside Associated Limited for results to be collected and presented subject to any appeals. And further, that any appeal must be received within 10 days prior to the Court of Revision in accordance with Section 52-2 for the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, Chapter D17, amended by 2010 C16, Schedule 1S, again, -21. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. I have Trevor seconding. I'm going to hand it over to you now, Carson.
Thank you, your worship. So Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heifer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Members of the Court of Revision, can somebody give me the counselors that would be interested in this so we can fill this out?
I would be interested.
Yeah, I would.
We have the four. It has to come from the four that are part of it, which is Paul, Chris, Anita, and who's the fourth one?
Yeah, so just to clarify, so council has a bylaw in place which appoints members of the Court of Revision. So under that bylaw, you have Councillor Van Hitterson, Councillor Palmer, and Deputy Reeve Sipe as your members of the court, and then your alternate is Councillor Heifer, right? So I guess in the past, like when one of those members has stepped back, like I think it was last time Deputy Reeve Sipe stepped back, and then Councillor Heifer. Councillor Heifer filled in his place, I believe, is what happened last time. So that's your bylaw there, and that forms your structure of your appointments.
Thank you, Carson. So we have the three members there. So motion, Trevor Sipes moving. Seconder, please. Trevor, were you moving or did you want to say something?
I was moving for discussion.
Thank you. Seconder, please. I have Anita seconding. Okay, let's open it. Just before we
so Reeve Bailey, just to clarify, so the motion that's being moved for discussion is based on the appointments being Councillor Van Hitterson, Councillor Palmer, and Deputy Reeve Sipe, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Before we go any further, Carson, do we talk about this or just vote?
Yeah, if there's discussion to be had, then it would be had at this time before you call the vote.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Trevor. Now you may speak.
Thank you, Reeve. I really want to understand my comment is really a question to Councillor Palmer, in the sense that Councillor Palmer, through you, Reeve, you had a lot to say as it relates to assessment at the previous meeting. My question is to you: do you feel yourself to be impartial in a quarter revision?
Yes, I do. Learning the comments from different individuals that they're satisfied. What is it to? How can I override if they are satisfied? It doesn't matter what I think. It's what the individuals who are dealt this hand, that's who are important. So that's why I gave my support for the report, because I didn't see that I didn't hear that there were any issues. Luke, I didn't know he didn't contact me, so I have no idea what his feelings were. And yeah, so yes, I do feel impartial.
So we have a mover and a seconder. So Carson, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the members for the quarter revision for the Murray Scott Drain and Stream Rehabilitation Project 2021 shall consist of the following 3 members: Councillor Van Henderson, Councillor Palmer, and Deputy Reeve Sipe. So Councillor Falconer?
No.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
No.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey?
No.
So that motion carries 4-3, with the noes being Reeve Bailey, Councillor Falconer, and Councillor McBurney.
Okay, thank you. Closed session reporting out. We done confirmation of bylaw. That the bylaw number 27-2021 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by the Council of the Township of North Huron at the April 6, 2021 meeting be introduced, read first, second, third, and final time, being signed by the Reeve and clerk and being engrossed in the bylaw books. Do I have a mover? I have Rick McBurney moving. I have Paul Heffer seconding. It's yours, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer? Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey?
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Adjournment that the Council Township of North Huron agrees being no further business before council. The meeting hereby adjourns at 8:19 p.m. Do I have a mover? Anita, seconder. I have Paul. Go ahead, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Van Henderson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey?
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Have a good, safe night, everyone. See you another time. Bye-bye.